From the outside, they looked like the perfect couple. 2 kids, a mortgage almost paid off, and a summer house by Lake Champlain in Vermont. But one day, Michael felt something was off. And what he did in the end would shock anyone. It all began with small things. Little details that shouldn't have mattered, but started to irritate him. Emily began coming home from work later than usual, sometimes slightly tipsy. She would say there were reports to finish, audits to prepare for, deadlines. But her behavior grew more tense. When he asked questions, she would snap, sometimes harshly, as if he were not her husband, but an IRS agent. A couple of times, he noticed her quickly deleting a message as soon as it came in. One evening, she spent almost 30 minutes in the bathroom with her phone. When he knocked, she yelled, "What do you want?" claiming she was just washing her face. Nothing concrete, but the feeling stayed. Michael didn't throw fits, didn't make scenes. He just started watching. On weekends, she began going to visit her mother in Albany, New York, more often and, strangely, never invited him along, though they had always gone together before. Then her mother called and, surprised, asked, "Why didn't you both come, like always?" Michael brushed it off with a joke, but inside, his stomach sank. It felt like Emily was living in a parallel world, and he was just the convenient cover for someone else. The unease grew. Michael noticed how Emily looked better on certain days: makeup, heels, a different perfume, not one he'd given her, and always on days she claimed there was an inspection at work. Their usual closeness disappeared. In the evenings, she went to bed with her phone under the pillow, and when he tried to cuddle, she reacted as if shooing away an annoying insect. He knew one thing for sure: this wasn't paranoia. Something real was happening, he just couldn't quite see it yet. At first glance, everything seemed the same. Emily still went to work, came home, told her routine stories about accounting problems, strange reports, and clerical errors. But something in her tone, her facial expressions, her body language toward Michael had changed. It was as if she were playing a role, like an actress on stage, while he was the audience, unaware that the show had started long ago. The turning point came one evening when she returned late again, claiming she'd been with her college friend Natalie, someone she supposedly met once a week. But that night, the apartment carried a strange scent. Not food. Not her usual perfume. It was sweet, rich, expensive. Not the kind she kept in their bathroom. And definitely not the kind she wore for everyday life. This scent was bold, almost nightclub-like. Michael noticed it immediately but said nothing. He simply stored the detail away. A few days later, he saw Emily receive a text message and her expression changed instantly. She looked startled for a second before hurrying out onto the balcony, claiming she needed to call her mom. Only her mother was in the hospital at the time, barely speaking after throat surgery. Michael didn't question her, didn't press. He just remembered. Later, at work, he decided to check her social media page. Nothing unusual at first, until he noticed a man he didn't know, Jason, in the list of likes under one of her newer photos. Jason's profile showed a sports car in the profile picture, no mutual friends. The like was under a photo of Emily wearing a dress she had told Michael she hadn't worn in years because it was too small. Yet in the photo, it fit her perfectly, captioned, "A rare evening to relax." That rare evening was, according to her, spent with Natalie. Coincidence? Michael began piecing together these details like a mosaic. Things that once seemed random now stirred sharper doubts. Emily's company was planning a big corporate event in Seattle, Washington. A formal dinner with partners, awards, speeches, the kind of thing she usually dreaded. But this time, she seemed almost excited. She bought a new evening dress, had her hair done at an upscale salon, and even went for a professional makeup session. Michael couldn't remember the last time she put this much effort into getting ready for anything. "Don't wait up for me," she said lightly, slipping into her heels. "It's going to run late." Michael only smiled and wished her a good evening. That night, he couldn't sleep. Something inside told him this wasn't just a work dinner. So he decided to check. Opening her laptop, something she usually guarded, he saw her email still logged in. There it was, an email thread between her and Jason. Short messages, no outright declarations, but the tone was obvious. References to our next trip and Miami in November made it clear this wasn't business. One message from her read, "I'll slip away from the group after the award ceremony." Same place as last time. The timestamp? The night of another corporate dinner 2 months ago. Michael closed the laptop slowly. He didn't shout. Didn't call her. Instead, he waited until 2:17 a.m. when she finally came home. Her cheeks were flushed, eyes bright, smelling of the same bold perfume he'd noticed before. She dropped her heels by the door and headed straight for the shower. When she came out, she avoided his eyes. "You're still up? I told you not to wait." Michael only nodded. And in that moment, he knew this was no longer suspicion. This was proof. The next morning, Michael didn't go to work. He called in sick, though he wasn't sick, not physically anyway. He spent the day making copies of the emails, the messages, even screenshots of Jason's social media posts that matched the dates Emily had been busy. By evening, he had a neat folder labeled simply, "Truth." When Emily returned from work, she found him sitting at the kitchen table, coffee in hand, the folder in front of him. "What's that?" she asked, setting down her bag. "Everything you've been hiding," he said quietly. Her smile froze. "Mike, I don't know what you're talking about." He slid the folder toward her. "Then you'll have no problem explaining this. Or this. Or the hotel receipt from Miami, booked under Jason's name, with 2 guests. Emily's hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. It's not what you think." Michael laughed, but there was no humor in it. "No, Emily. It's exactly what I think." She opened her mouth to argue, but he stood up, pushing his chair back. "I'm done. You'll get the divorce papers by the end of the week. And you can take that perfume with you, it doesn't belong in my house anymore." He left before she could respond, walking out into the cold Seattle night. The air bit at his face, but for the first time in months, he felt lighter. 2 months later, Michael stood on a pier in Burlington, Vermont, looking out over the frozen surface of Lake Champlain. He'd driven there on purpose. The quiet was healing. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I made a mistake. Please, can we talk?" He stared at it for a long moment, then hit delete. The wind howled over the lake, carrying away the last trace of her voice from his memory. And just like that, it was over.